Loretta Harper was born in 1974 in Georgia, into a poor but close-knit family. Her mother worked as a hospital orderly, and her father was a car mechanic. From early childhood, Loretta dreamed of helping people. She would bandage neighborhood kids' cuts and take care of her grandmother after a stroke. She got into college on a scholarship and graduated with honors. In the early 2000s, she landed her dream job, a nurse in a prestigious private clinic in Atlanta that catered to wealthy and influential patients. She was that kind of nurse, the one patients called an angel, gentle, patient, attentive. She became especially close with Esther Hampton, an 82-year-old widow of a senator. Esther had no family, and Loretta became the only person she truly trusted. The elderly woman even hinted she might rewrite her will, leaving part of her estate to Loretta. 2 weeks later, Esther was dead. Official cause, a heart attack. But soon after, an anonymous tip was sent to the police, suggesting the patient may have been given the wrong medication. The investigation started with Loretta. In her locker, they found a vial of a strong drug not prescribed to Esther. Her colleagues turned away from her. The chief physician claimed Loretta had been acting mentally unstable in recent weeks. She wasn't in prison. She was declared insane. In court, there were statements about obsessive behavior, delusional thinking, and even an unhealthy fixation on the wealthy patient. In 2003, Loretta was sent to a locked psychiatric facility in Augusta. No right to appeal, no lawyer, no family. Her mother had passed away, and her father died before the trial. In the asylum, time stood still. The first years she cried at night, wrote letters to nowhere, tried to prove she'd been framed. Then silence. She became a shadow. The nurses feared her, quiet, withdrawn, always writing in her notebook. Almost no one believed she would ever be released. What follows is not just a record of survival, but of quiet, calculated resistance inside a place designed to make you forget who you are. The white coat. For days, Loretta sat motionless in her new room. Concrete walls, a barred window, a silent ghost. Until one day, old orderly Mrs. Gray dropped a folded white coat on her bed. "You're still a nurse. Don't let them take that from you." Loretta began to help other patients, dressing wounds, soothing anxiety attacks, not officially, quietly, in stolen moments. It reminded her who she was. And then she started writing. Names, patterns, prescriptions. Her first entry, "Observe everything, trust no one." At first, patients avoided her. Some whispered she was violent. Others thought she'd lost her mind. But when Loretta gently wrapped a bandage around an elderly woman's wrist, something shifted. One of the younger women called her nurse for the first time, and Loretta almost cried. She began documenting even more: medication carts, staff rotations, and subtle shifts in patient behavior after certain pills. The white coat didn't just restore her identity, it marked the beginning of her resistance. Death in room 11. Sandra was only 23, diagnosed with schizophrenia, but to Loretta, she was just scared. One night, Sandra complained of burning headaches. The next morning, she was dead. Official cause, cardiac arrest. But Loretta saw the chart, a drug she wasn't prescribed, powerful, unapproved, and possibly fatal in her condition. Loretta copied the name, logged the nurse on duty, noted the exact time the injection was given. This became the first line in what she called her death ledger. No one asked questions. Sandra's body was quickly removed, her things packed and discarded before breakfast. The nurse on duty claimed she followed all procedures, but Loretta remembered hearing hurried steps in the hallway around 3 a.m. She tore a strip from an old bedsheet and wrapped it around Sandra's toothbrush. A tiny memorial buried under her mattress. That night, Loretta couldn't sleep. Something inside her had changed. Letters to nowhere. Each Sunday, Loretta wrote letters to judges, journalists, ministries. Dozens, hundreds. Different names, different addresses, but none were answered. One night, kind, orderly Jenny whispered, "They're not mailed, they're burned." Loretta began hiding carbon copies in book spines, under shower tiles, inside air vents. She left breadcrumbs for a future she still dared to believe in. Years later, those letters would become admissible court evidence of a suppressed outcry. She wrote every letter by hand, careful not to repeat phrasing that might trigger suspicion. In one, she listed the times she'd been sedated without consent. In another, she described Sandra's death in plain, clinical language. These letters weren't just cries for help. They were documentation, survival, evidence. Even after she learned they were being burned, she kept writing. It gave her purpose. The girl who drew wings. Aisha was 15, institutionalized after accusing her foster father of assault. She wouldn't speak, but she drew. Feathers, birds, broken angels. Draw where it hurts, Loretta said. Aisha sketched a female figure with bandaged wings and a badge with the name Doctor. K. Loretta archived the drawing in her hidden ledger. That name would come up again during a federal investigation into pharmaceutical testing on minors. Aisha never made eye contact, but she always sat near Loretta. Every drawing was folded and hidden beneath her mattress like sacred secrets. Once she slipped Loretta a note. "I'm not crazy, he is." It was unsigned. When Aisha was transferred without warning, Loretta felt the absence like a missing lung. The vanishing of Mrs. Gray. And then one day Mrs. Gray disappeared. No goodbyes, no staff announcement, just gone. "She knew too much," whispered another patient. The next morning, Loretta's room was raided, but her journal was hidden behind the ceiling tile. Safe. Mrs. Gray's disappearance was the moment Loretta realized, "They're watching me." Loretta asked staff where Mrs. Gray had gone. "Transferred," they said, but wouldn't say where. In the staff logbook, Loretta noticed her name had been crossed out, not erased, as if they were hiding a mistake, not a departure. The night before she vanished, Mrs. Gray had whispered, "Keep the ceiling safe." That's where Loretta later hid her second notebook. The day she screamed. Year 6. After being forcibly injected with a new experimental sedative, Loretta snapped. She screamed so loud the fire alarm went off. Patients screamed with her. She was transferred to a stricter wing, but in that locked ward she found a discarded patient manual with red stamps. Trial Group B. No disclosure permitted. She copied every word. It matched what happened to Sandra. The injection had made her dizzy, then numb, then disoriented. She couldn't tell dream from waking. When her vision finally cleared, she was restrained in bed, drool on her chin. That humiliation cracked something open. For the first time in years, she let her fury speak. And once she screamed, she realized she hadn't truly used her voice in over a decade. The tape recorder. In an old rec room, Loretta found a dusty cassette deck, a forgotten relic. One day, someone left a tape inside. On it, the clinical director's voice laughing. "If 2 or 3 drop off, no one's going to audit. We're covered." From then on, she began collecting tapes, hidden recorders placed under beds, taped inside hollow books, voices of doctors joking about overdosing, orders to adjust behavior with chemicals. When her case was reopened, those tapes cracked it wide. She smuggled blank tapes through laundry carts and pretended to be cleaning when she swapped them out. Sometimes the recordings were dull, elevator music and background chatter, but occasionally they revealed chilling things. Staff mocking non-compliant patients, discussing adjustments and clearance. She labeled each tape with a flower name in case they were found. Her archive grew, hidden inside hollowed-out encyclopedias. The Woman Who Spoke in Flowers. Olga was a Russian chemist institutionalized for paranoia, but her nightly whispers weren't nonsense. They were chemical formulas disguised as flower names. Lily of the Valley, foxglove, nightshade. Loretta cross-referenced the symptoms. These were code names for toxic compounds, experimental sedatives. Later, her notes helped confirm that patients were part of illegal trials. Olga's babbling wasn't madness. It was testimony. Olga had worked in a Soviet lab, she claimed, and every night she whispered in botanical riddles. Loretta transcribed it phonetically, then decoded it with chemistry textbooks she checked out under a false patient ID. Olga's warnings matched up with side effects she saw in patients after their injections. The woman wasn't mad. She was brilliant and terrified. One day, Olga disappeared too. No goodbye. The confession. Dr. Lang was an aging staff physician, always polite but distant. One night, drunk on duty, he pulled Loretta aside. "They set you up. Esther, the patient who died, wanted to name you in her will. They couldn't let that happen." He handed her a paper, a forged signature from Esther's medical release. "I didn't know they'd bury you alive. I'm sorry." That apology, combined with the document, became a smoking gun. Dr. Lang shook as he handed her the paper. "I should have retired years ago," he muttered. He told her they were running a billing scam, listing meds for dead patients and inventing diagnoses. Esther had figured it out. When she insisted on naming Loretta in her will, they panicked. The Sunday of Freedom. A new administration, a bureaucratic audit. One name flagged for review, Loretta Harper. They let her out with no explanation, just a generic statement. Case resolved under psychiatric code revision. She walked out with one suitcase. No family, no job. Just her notebooks, cassette tapes, drawings, letters, chemical notes, and a handwritten confession. She found a pro bono lawyer, brought her evidence, took it to the press. The fallout was nuclear. 5 staffers lost their licenses. Dr. K was federally indicted. A multi-million-dollar settlement followed. But Loretta didn't care about money. She opened a nonprofit for institutionalized women and made her life's work exposing quiet abuses in psychiatric care. On the wall of her modest office, framed behind glass, is a yellowed piece of paper. Her first Sunday letter, the one they tried to burn. It reads, "I was never crazy, I was inconvenient." She walked free after 17 years. No money, no job, no papers. But she had the notebook, the one she had kept all those years, with names, facts, inconsistencies, tiny details. Who changed a medication dose? When bottles were swapped, who had access to her locker? Loretta began collecting evidence. She wrote to former staff, went to libraries, combed through archived medical files. One by one, people started talking, and one former orderly sent her an anonymous tape, a hidden recording of the chief physician discussing how to get rid of the problem before that black nurse ruined everything. Turns out, the clinic had for years been running a scheme, prescribing expensive meds to dead patients and splitting the insurance money. Loretta had seen too much, and Esther's death wasn't an accident. She'd been poisoned for planning to leave her fortune to Loretta. With the help of a local journalist, Loretta published an expose. Then, she filed a lawsuit. Within 2 years, the case went federal. Several doctors lost their licenses. One committed suicide. Loretta won compensation and, most importantly, full exoneration. Now she lives alone, but she is free. She helps other women caught in the traps of the system. And on the wall in her home hangs a portrait of Esther, the woman where it all began, and the woman for whom Loretta endured it all.